Madison and I met through friends at a hiking trip 2 years before everything fell apart. She was charming, confident, always surrounded by people who admired her energy. At first, I thought she liked me for who I was. Calm, patient, maybe a little boring compared to the loud guys she used to date. She said she wanted stability. She said she was tired of drama and chaos. I believed her. For a while, things were easy. We went on weekend trips, cooked dinner together, laughed about stupid shows. I thought we were building something real. Then little things started to change. She began making comparisons that didn't feel like jokes anymore. Lily's boyfriend just surprised her with a weekend in Aspen. Mark just bought a new car. Maybe you should upgrade too. She said it casually, but every word carried a weight. I started to feel like I was being measured against invisible standards. She talked a lot about success and image, about how people should look like they're winning. I never cared for that kind of performance. I worked hard, earned good money, lived comfortably, and saved wisely. But Madison thought comfort looked too much like mediocrity. She wanted luxury, attention, validation. I wanted peace. She loved posting online, showing the world her perfect life. She asked me to pose for photos with fake smiles and motivational captions. I didn't mind at first, but it became constant. Every dinner had to be aesthetic. Every trip needed to be documented. She wanted power couple energy. But to her, power meant showing off. When I got promoted, she was upset I didn't post it online. She said, "People need to see you're winning." I told her I preferred to stay private. She rolled her eyes and called me modest to a fault. She started suggesting that I dress better, drive something flashier. I liked my old sedan. It worked perfectly fine. She said it made me look average. It was strange hearing that from someone who once said she loved how grounded I was. Arguments became more frequent. Not loud ones, just quiet tension that filled the room. I could feel her disappointment like static in the air. She talked about ambition, as if it was a costume I refused to wear. I began questioning myself. Was I really too comfortable? Was I afraid of standing out? But then I'd look around my apartment, the life I built, the calm routine I enjoyed. I wasn't unhappy. I just didn't need to prove anything. Still, Madison wanted more. More shine, more praise, more validation. She'd scroll through social media and sigh. "Everyone else is moving forward," she said. I didn't know she meant away from me. The woman who once said she admired my peace was now chasing noise. And deep down, I felt it. Something was shifting between us. Something I couldn't fix with logic or love. Because what she wanted wasn't a partner. She wanted an image. And I was never going to be that. Then one day, Madison joined a new gym called Iron Core Fitness. She said it was different, more elite, full of driven people. It was the kind of place with glass walls, neon lights, and overpriced smoothies. Everyone there looked like they were auditioning for a fitness commercial. That's where she met Blake. He was the head trainer, tall, loud, muscles packed under a tank top that screamed confidence. He called himself a lifestyle coach, not just a trainer. He talked about mindset, dominance, and the power of alpha energy. Madison couldn't stop mentioning him. Blake said this. Blake believes that. Blake thinks most men are too weak to lead. At first, I laughed it off. I thought she was exaggerating. Then I met him. He had the handshake of someone trying to prove a point. His smile didn't reach his eyes. He looked me up and down like I was a joke. "So you're the software guy," he said. I nodded, polite but distant. He smirked. "Must be nice, sitting all day while real men move iron." Madison giggled, like it was harmless banter. But I saw the admiration in her eyes. I saw the spark that used to be for me. After that, everything revolved around Blake. She started changing her schedule, spending hours at the gym. She came home late, glowing with adrenaline and new ideas. Blake says confidence is everything, she'd say. Blake says success is about commanding attention. It was like she'd joined a cult of muscles and ego. She pushed me to come train with her. You'd like it, she said. Blake could help you find your inner alpha. I smiled, but inside I wanted to laugh. The last thing I needed was a man like him yelling at me to feel powerful. She didn't get it. To her, strength looked like shouting and flexing. To me, it looked like self-control. Soon, she started criticizing everything I did. My clothes were too plain. My car wasn't masculine enough. My job didn't sound exciting when I described it. She even bought me designer shirts, saying I needed to look successful. When I told her comfort mattered more, she sighed. You're scared of standing out, she said. No, I thought, I'm just not pretending. But she didn't want truth. She wanted fantasy. Our dinners became lectures about ambition and energy. She quoted Blake like he was a philosopher. He had turned into her idol. And I had turned into her project. The woman who once told me I was enough now wanted to rebuild me from scratch. I watched her drift away day by day. Not with anger, but with a quiet sense of loss. It wasn't Blake who ruined us. It was what he represented. A mirror that showed her what she truly valued. Power, attention, and the illusion of being special. And I knew then, no matter how much I loved her, I could never compete with that kind of emptiness, disguised as ambition. It ended on a Tuesday night. I was at work, finishing a project that had kept me up for days. My phone buzzed, and I glanced at the screen expecting something ordinary. Instead, there it was. A message from Madison. I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving you for a real alpha male. I read it twice, maybe 3 times. It didn't hurt the way I thought it would. It felt distant, like reading someone else's story. I typed 2 words back. Good luck. That was it. No anger. No pleading. Just closure in 2 syllables. She called right after. I ignored it. She called again, then again. The texts followed fast, accusing me of not fighting for her. She said a real man would never let his woman go without a battle. I smiled at the irony. The same woman who'd left me for dominance now demanded proof of mine. But I didn't owe her a performance. I turned my phone off and went back to work. The silence in that office felt like peace. I realized how long it had been since I felt calm. No comparisons, no criticism, no noise. Just me and my code. When I got home later that night, she was gone. Every trace of her had vanished. Her clothes, her makeup, even her favorite mug. The apartment felt strangely bigger. I walked through the empty rooms and laughed quietly. It wasn't sadness I felt. It was relief. The kind of relief that comes when a weight finally lifts. I made myself dinner, turned on music she always said was too mellow. It sounded better than ever. The next morning, my friend Tyler called. He'd heard through someone that Madison had left me for her trainer. He asked if I was okay. I told him the truth. I'm great, actually. He didn't believe me at first. But I wasn't lying. For the first time in months, I could breathe. No expectations, no pretending to be more than I was. I didn't have to explain my choices or defend my peace. I could just exist. The following days were quiet, almost too quiet. I found myself noticing small details I used to ignore. The smell of coffee in the morning. The light through the blinds at sunrise. The absence of tension. I cleaned the apartment, threw out things she left behind. Self-help books about power and energy went straight into the trash. Her Instagram perfect photos felt like memories from another life. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even bitter. She had made her choice. And for once, I didn't feel the need to fix it. Because maybe some people aren't meant to be taught what real peace feels like. They have to chase the noise until it breaks them. And I wasn't going to follow her there. I had already found my freedom in 2 simple words. Good luck. A few weeks after the breakup, my friend Tyler invited me to a house party. I almost said no. Crowds weren't really my thing, but he insisted I needed a night out. So I went. The place was warm, loud, full of laughter and normal people. No one talking about power or dominance. Just life. That's where I met Emily. She was standing near the kitchen, holding a drink and laughing at some bad joke. We started talking, and the conversation flowed like we'd known each other for years. She was a prosecutor, sharp and grounded, but nothing about her felt intimidating. She asked about my work, not to measure me, just to understand. For the first time in a long while, I felt seen. We talked about books, hiking trails, and terrible movie endings. When she smiled, it wasn't staged for social media. It was real. We exchanged numbers before the night ended. I didn't expect much, but she texted me the next morning. Coffee this weekend? I said yes. That first date changed everything. No games, no roles, no pressure to impress. Just 2 people being honest. When she talked about her job, her eyes lit up. She said she prosecuted cases involving fraud and domestic violence. There was strength in her, but it came from empathy, not ego. She told me she liked taking down people who thought they were untouchable. I couldn't help but laugh at the irony. I didn't tell her about Madison or Blake that night. It felt unnecessary. The past was behind me, and Emily wasn't someone who needed comparisons. Our connection grew naturally. Simple moments, shared laughter, quiet dinners. She never asked me to change. She never measured me by my income, my clothes, or my car. For the first time, being myself felt enough. Then one afternoon, I got a message from Tyler. It was a link to a local news article. Fitness trainer arrested on multiple charges, the headline read. The photo hit me like a flash. It was Blake, the so-called alpha. His perfect hair gone messy, his tan fatting, his smirk erased. He looked small, defeated, nothing like the god Madison once worshipped. The charges were serious. Steroid distribution, tax evasion, domestic assault. It was all there in black and white. I couldn't help but feel a mix of shock and dark amusement. The man who preached power had built everything on lies. A few days later, I told Emily the story. She listened quietly, then smiled. Funny thing, she said. That's one of my cases. I froze. She was the prosecutor handling Blake's trial. We both laughed at the absurdity of it. Life had an uncanny sense of balance. The woman I lost chasing an illusion was gone. And the woman who stood for truth and strength had just walked into my life. It felt like the universe finally whispered. This is what real power looks like. Blake's trial began a few months later. Emily worked long hours preparing evidence, but she handled it with calm precision. I watched her balance fire and grace in every move she made. She wasn't loud like Blake. She didn't need to be. Her strength was quiet, deliberate, and real. When the court date came, I sat in the back row, unnoticed. Blake walked in wearing a cheap suit that hung loose on his shoulders. The steroids were gone, and so was the confidence. He looked smaller, weaker, human. The same man who once preached about dominance now avoided eye contact. The prosecution laid everything bare. Fake business records, hidden income, steroid trafficking, and worst of all, the abuse. The victims testified one by one. Their voices trembled, but their words cut deeper than any punch he had thrown. One woman described the fear of living under his control. Another spoke about the bruises she hid behind makeup. They all said the same thing. He called himself an alpha. He told them real women should obey. Hearing it out loud made my stomach turn. Emily presented the evidence with unflinching focus. She didn't gloat. She didn't break. She let the truth destroy him on its own. When the sentence was read, Blake barely reacted. 12 years in prison. Maybe less with good behavior, but still long enough to face himself. I exhaled a breath I didn't know I was holding. Justice had a way of cleaning the air. After court, Emily and I went out for dinner. We toasted to truth, not revenge. She said, "He'll have plenty of time to think about his spelling." I laughed harder than I had in months. That night, my phone rang. Madison's name appeared for the first time in weeks. I hesitated, then answered. Her voice was small, cracked, nothing like the confident tone she once used. "I saw the news," she whispered. "I can't believe it." She said she made a terrible mistake. She said she wanted to make things right. I stayed quiet until she asked if we could try again. "Madison," I said, "I've moved on." She begged, said she'd learned her lesson. But lessons like that come too late. "I'm seeing someone," I told her. She asked who. "A prosecutor," I said. There was silence on the line. Then a broken laugh. "Please don't tell me it's the one handling his case." I didn't answer. She knew. The irony was brutal, but it wasn't revenge. It was closure. We said goodbye for the last time. When I hung up, I felt nothing but peace. Emily didn't just bring justice to Blake. She reminded me what real strength looked like. Not loud. Not violent. Just steady, honest, and kind. And for the first time, I realized I hadn't lost anything at all. I'd simply made space for something better. 6 months passed before I saw Madison again. I was at a small coffee shop near my office, working on a project. When I looked up, she was standing by the door, holding a cup, frozen mid-step. Her hair was dull. Her clothes simple, and the glow she once carried was gone. She walked over slowly, like she wasn't sure she should. "Ethan," she said quietly, "can we talk?" I closed my laptop and nodded. She sat across from me, eyes tired, fingers trembling slightly. "I've been thinking about everything," she started. "I made the biggest mistake of my life." Her voice cracked when she said it. She told me she'd left the city for a while after the trial. She said she couldn't face anyone who knew what happened. I listened in silence. She kept talking about Blake, how charming he'd been, how blind she was. "I thought he was strong," she whispered, "but he was just cruel." Tears filled her eyes. I traded something real for an illusion. I felt sorry for her, but pity isn't the same as love. "I'm sorry things turned out that way," I said. She looked up quickly. "They could still turn around," she said. "We could try again." I took a slow breath. "I'm engaged," I said gently. Her lips parted, but no words came out. "To who?" she asked after a moment. "Emily." She froze. "The prosecutor." I nodded. Her eyes widened, searching my face for a sign I was joking. But I was. We sat in silence for a long minute. Finally, she looked down and whispered, "She's lucky." I shook my head. "No, I'm the lucky one." Madison smiled sadly, tears clinging to her lashes. "She treats you well." "She respects me," I said. "That's more powerful than anything else." Madison nodded slowly, like she was trying to memorize the sentence. "I used to think power meant control," she said. "I see now it's about peace." She stood up, ready to leave. "Ethan," she said softly, "I hope you stay happy, you deserve it." "I hope you find peace too," I replied. She smiled one last time and walked out into the cold evening. That was the last time I saw her. A few months later, Emily and I got married in a small ceremony by the lake. There were no grand speeches or fancy guests. Just laughter, warmth, and people who truly cared. When I looked at her during our vows, I felt something simple and certain. I was home. We spent our honeymoon in Italy, walking through quiet streets and laughing at nothing. One night over dinner, Emily asked, "Do you ever feel bad for her?" "Sometimes," I said. She made bad choices, but she didn't deserve what she got. Emily smiled gently. That's why I love you. We toasted our glasses and watched the sun fade. Real strength isn't about dominance or pride. It's about kindness, patience, and truth. And that night, under soft Italian lights, I knew I had finally found all three. Time moved forward quietly. Emily and I built a life that felt calm and real. We bought a small house with a garden and sunlight in every room. Mornings were simple: coffee, laughter, and no pressure to impress anyone. She got promoted at work, and I led a new project that changed my career. There was no need for show, no competition, no need to prove strength. We learned that love grows best in peace, not performance. Sometimes, I still heard about Madison. Friends said she moved to another city and started over. She was seeing someone kind, a social worker, and getting therapy. I was glad for her, honestly. Everyone deserves a second chance at becoming better. As for Blake, prison became his mirror. The act of being an alpha didn't survive behind bars. Real strength had finally found a way to humble him. Life came full circle, in ways I never expected. The woman who left me for power taught me the value of peace. The woman who believed in justice showed me what love truly meant. And as I watched the sunset from our backyard, I realized something simple. Real men don't need to prove they're strong. They just are.